Hi, my name is Beck. Welcome to my December wrap-up, my final wrap-up for 2023. I have read 88 books. I'm currently reading 2, so I am hopeful that I'll get to 90. I am filming this a few days before, obviously, the new year starts, so I have a little bit of time up my sleeve. I am anticipating that I'll finish those things though, and when I talk about them, you will see why. So let's get into all of the books that I have read during December and also am currently reading. Firstly, for books I read, I did a reread because the next one in this series is coming out in early January, so I need to get onto it, and that is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This follows 6 Medeans, which are like magic users in this fantasy world that's kind of like ours, but obviously it has systems in place that allow magic to occur because it's a little bit more science-based in some aspects. So these 6 Medeans are these initiates that Atlas has chosen to come to this secret society and school to study in their specialized magics. And this school is the Great Library of Alexandria, which was not destroyed and now has a secret archive that these students can access, but there is a toll to accessing it. As you are aware, with dark academia, there is always a price for power. And so the dynamics between these characters is quite intense, but in a great way. And I love that there is mystery and intrigue woven into this story, as well as the main 6 characters' goals and purposes. I really liked their dynamics and their tension. It got very dark, and I saw the manipulation more in this reread than I did in the first book because it's very subtle. So I really appreciated that level of writing and that level of just understanding their characters. So I really enjoyed this. The intrigue was next level, and I'm really looking forward to continuing with the sequel and then the 3rd book that comes out in January. If you couldn't guess, I gave this a fairly high rating. The first time I read it, I gave it 4.5 stars. The second time I read it, obviously 4.5 stars as well. So I'm looking forward to continuing this series. Then I've been waiting for this book for so long. Well, it feels that way anyway. And Volume 5 of Heartstopper came out in December, and of course I snapped it up and read it as soon as I could. And this one follows obviously Nick and Charlie. This is a friendship turned romance between Nick and Charlie at the beginning of the story has been outed as gay and he's been bullied quite significantly. And so he's going through that identity and mental health and trauma of having that happen to him and also finding a safe place in his friend Nick. And Nick is seated next to him in their form group and they form this lovely friendship turned romance, and Nick discovers things about his own identity as well. And I just love that these characters can bring out each other's true selves and they are truly each other's safe place. This story follows a lot of connection and consent, and it was just beautiful. Also, there was jokes scattered throughout. So Alice Oseman really knows how to balance the darker side of the tension and the realistic topics of mental health, but also to balance out the trust and the humor in this book as well, which is honestly why I love this series so much. It's got such lovely queer friendships and support. All you need to know is that I love it, and I gave this one 5 stars. But now we have an unfortunate thing. And I mean, I don't feel very remorseful. I kind of feel relieved actually, and I'm going to talk about The Justice of Kings because I read 60 pages into this story and I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. The concept sounds great, but I just could not get on board with the writing style. So it's about these traveling justices, and the justice really overlaps with the religion of the time. So the main character is a apprentice to this justice, and this justice can make people speak the truth. It's actually a really cool power, so I really respect the magic that's kind of coming to fruition in this story. But like I said, I only got 60 pages into it and the writing style was just not for me, and that's because it's told in like a past present perspective where our apprentice is our main character and she's going over what has happened so far, and it's almost kind of reflective, but that makes the reader feel removed from the situation directly. And so I didn't really care about the stakes of this story. It was building things up really well in terms of there being a murder and this justice trying to get to the heart of what has happened, and also the apprentice going along with this justice and, you know, just being a bratty apprentice and not really understanding the context. But the context will come from her narration and her reflection. And it just feels very past, and I want it to be more present and more actiony, and it's just not working for me. So like I said, I did not finish this. I DNF'd it, I put it down, and I felt very relieved after I did because I didn't realize how much this writing style was kind of weighing down my motivation. And then another exciting thing, this is also a reread if you couldn't guess, but the Percy Jackson TV show on Disney Plus is starting to come out in December, and I have watched 3 episodes at the time I'm filming this video because that's all that are out. And I reread the series because I needed to re-experience the series before I watched the show. And honestly, I'm loving both. I'm having such a great time. So I read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is book 1. And this follows Percy, Annabeth, and Grover as they go on a quest to recover Zeus's stolen lightning bolt. And Percy is a demigod, which is half human, half god. And he's got all of these latent abilities that come with that. And at the beginning, he doesn't know that he's a demigod. So he's discovering that and also being brought into this world of magic. I just love it so much. It's so nostalgic to me, and it's also just great on a reread too. It's very funny and it's very integrated with the characters. I feel like they are all their own person because they're that unique. And I also forgot in this story how blunt Annabeth was. I found her in some interactions to be a little bit frustrating, like her and Percy's interplay. And then I realized, like, they're kids, they're teenagers, they're not supposed to know everything. And this interaction is actually quite realistic, and I really ended up enjoying all of the books in this series, but I'm getting ahead of myself. If you couldn't tell, I gave The Lightning Thief 5 stars, and then I read Sea of Monsters as well. All of this is chronicled as well in my Vlogmas videos when I was filming at the beginning of December, but I digress. The Sea of Monsters I gave a 4 stars. It wasn't quite as classic as the first book because Grover is not part of the trio in this book, and we follow a character named Tyson instead. And it was a great dynamic still, but it just kind of wasn't what I wanted. My notes say that it felt a little bit off kilter with Tyson at the helm, but I think I just honestly prefer the classic trio to what was in here. The quest was still fine and fun, but yeah, I just prefer the first book. So in the series, this is probably my least favorite, but it's still got a 4 stars. Then we've got book 3, which is The Titan's Curse, and I'm not really going into the aspects of each plot and quest because it's mildly spoilery and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who might want to read this series, whether you're a kid or an adult. I love it. It's a kid's series, but I still love it so much. This one actually made me tear up and cry just a little bit towards the end. When there's any show of love that is a surprise with loyalty involved as well, it always makes me build up emotionally and go, oh, I just love these characters so much. And there was a moment towards the end of this story that had that love and loyalty, and I was like, oh, I have so many feelings. There's also a character in here named Nico, and rereading it and knowing what his journey is and seeing where it started, it just made me so heartbroken to see him again. I want to just go into the story and give him a hug. Even though he'd probably hate having a hug. I just want to comfort him somehow. He deserves comfort. And then, of course, you have guessed book 4, Battle of the Labyrinth. I love this book as well. Also a 5 stars. Like that one as well, 5 stars if I didn't say it. But this one had such a sweet moment in it, a sweet hug. And I was like, oh, I have so many feelings. Each of these books have just given me so many feelings, and I just love these characters so much if you couldn't tell. The mythology and the monsters and the way that this plot is so quick also makes these so easy to get through, which is why I basically smashed out this series at the end of the year. And then just for completion's sake, I have book 5, which is The Last Olympian, and I'm only 100 and something pages into this. I've got a few more hundred to go, but this is one of my currently reading books, and I am pretty confident that I can finish it in a few days because it's obviously a children's book, and honestly I have had so much momentum and motivation to read the others, so that's definitely still true with this book. I'm really liking it. The first time around I found this a little bit underwhelming in terms of like the crescendo of the story, but this time around, even though obviously I haven't gotten to the very end yet, I feel like I'm going to love it a lot more because I've had a little bit more perspective, and I really like the messaging already of safety, home and family and support that is in this story. So those are the themes of it. I already know I'm going to love it, and I know what's coming, but I don't know the entirety of what's coming because I've also forgotten stuff too. So I don't think Past Me is very reliable because it has been a while since I've read this. I also anticipate that at some point my heart will be broken because Rick Riordan just does that out of the blue, and I'm already sad, but I'm also excited. So I anticipate this is probably going to be a 5 stars too. If not a 5, like a 4 or a 4.5. It'll be high up there. I'll tell you a book that definitely wasn't a 4, a 4.5 or a 5 though, which is embarrassing. And that is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which is a Kickstarter book by Brandon Sanderson. Now I backed this Kickstarter a long time ago and I thought I would love these books, otherwise I wouldn't have backed it. But so far they've all been meh, and Yeah, this was meh as well. So this one got a 2 stars from me, which is really disappointing. And this one is essentially a Cosmere book, but it's also removed from everything else and it's a standalone. So if you want to read all of Brandon Sanderson's backlog, probably skip this one. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. It's like a slice of life story about Yumi and also Nikaro, which is a painter, and his job is to paint the nightmares into a particular image. So his city is attacked by these nightmare creatures, and the more they have a form, the harder they are to fight. And so it's the painter's job to go out and track down these nightmares and then paint them, and they take on the form that you are imagining. So he tends to paint them into bamboo, and that way they can't hurt people anymore. So that magic system is awesome, but it was kind of touched on at the very beginning and then not much throughout the story for like 2/3. So I was like, oh, this is great. Oh, where'd it go? So it was a little bit disappointing that way. Brandon Sanderson's usually pretty great at his magic systems, and you know, this was pretty great too. It had mentions of the Cosmere stories, like Stormlight, for example. There were a few mentions of that world, but beyond that, I wasn't really interested. And honestly, if I want the Stormlight world, I'll just reread The Way of Kings. That was the most interesting part of this story to me. It was a romance too. So it's about these two characters from these two different worlds. And I don't know how it happened, but at some point it's like they sneezed and woke up in each other's bodies. And while they're in each other's bodies, the other one is not corporeal. And so they kind of have to hover around and go, this is how I would do that interaction. This is the custom that you need to know about. And so from that completely alienness of each other, they figure out how to function. And so I liked in certain parts the way that they build a rapport with each other, but I just don't like them as characters. They're boring to me generally. They had interesting parts about like the world building, like I said. It was supposed to be kind of a romance, but honestly, Brandon Sanderson's romance is really not for me. And his character work is great, but I just did not like the execution of it in this story. The most wholesome part of this story that I liked that wasn't about the world building was Yumi being brought up in this really strict traditional way and seeing her learn to open up. That was kind of wholesome, and she had a lot of passion for a character that's supposed to be quite demure, but I didn't like Nikaro or Painter and how he's just a coward. I hate that archetype of, oh yeah, he's a coward, he ran away from everything, but he's just misunderstood. I hate it so much, and it's been used in the Frugal Wizard story and also in this book as well. I just hate it so much, and it seems to be like a linchpin of these Kickstarter books. And so I hope The Sunlit Man is actually good, because at this point I'm like, I think I'm gonna hate it because I've hated all of the others. And this one was a Cosmere book and I thought it would be the saving grace, and it's not. So 2 stars. I've unhauled it already, which is why I don't have it here. So that's really all you need to know about it. I don't have it anymore. And then lastly, my other currently reading book aside from The Last Olympian is Investing with She's on the Money. Now, I read She's on the Money a little while ago as an audiobook, and now I'm reading this one as an audiobook as well. And I've got about an hour and a half left, which is why I think that I can finish it in the next few days. Generally, I don't rate these books because they're kind of self-help / finance. So why would I really rate them? But my thoughts so far are that it's given me some decent terminology because I want to get into investing. I just don't know how or where to start. So it's given me some great keywords and great places to start. But because it's an Australian book and I'm in Australia, I thought it might give me a little bit more in terms of definitions and not recommendations, because I know you're not supposed to directly give financial advice in self-help books. That's not legal. But I hoped that it would give me an overview of like some statistics of what companies people generally invest in and what banks people use and that kind of thing. So it hasn't really given me quote unquote specific kind of information. It's just given me general terms and stuff at the moment. And I was kind of hoping for a little bit more direction. But aside from that, it's given me a great starting point in terms of definitions and context. So I can definitely use some parts of what I've read so far. And obviously the book isn't finished yet, so it's still got a little bit to go. And I'm hoping that I can glean a little bit more information from it when I continue listening to it. But yeah, I'm not going to rate this book. And there you go. Those are all of the things that I've read. I have almost got to 90 books, and that is my ultimate goal. But I'm also planning to read this book, and it's probably actually going to be the book I start 2024 with, even though I wanted to start it with Wolfsong, but we'll see what happens. My January to be read list is up, but it's more of like a placeholder in terms of what I want to read. So The Atlas Paradox is the book that I want to read next, just so that I can refresh my memory, obviously, for The Atlas Complex. The Atlas Complex is on my January to be read list, so I need to get this read so that I'm fully and utterly refreshed, because this, I know from memory, changes a lot of the dynamics of the characters that were set up in book one. So I'm looking forward to seeing what actually happened, because I've completely forgotten. So this is the next book that I hope to read after I finish Investing with She's on the Money and The Last Olympian. So wish me luck, because, you know, it's not a short book, but I can get there. But anyway, that is it for my December wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had a fantastic year. Personally, I haven't had a great year. The only good part was when we got married. Everything else has just been intensely stressful, but I'm hoping that 2024 will be a revitalized and motivating year. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you have planned to read for your first book of 2024. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come and chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.